Now, Channel 13, Eyewitness News, tonight.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. A fanatical, scripture-quoting religious leader who moved to Waco to await the end of the world, instead may be to blame tonight for the deaths of several federal agents.
We've got a standoff that continues at this hour after 2 shootouts earlier today. A compound located 10 miles east of Waco in the community of Elk, which is where we join our Wayne Jolchefino and Debbie Johnson, who have been covering this unbelievable story. Wayne?
Yeah, Bob and Minerva, never before has the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau lost this many people in a single operation, and the government was prepared for trouble this morning. 3 helicopters, 150 law enforcement officers, some of them from the Houston area, involved in the operation, but as one ATF agent told us tonight, it looked like they knew we were coming. Tonight, we are about a mile to the west of the compound where the standoff has entered its 13th hour. You could see the bullet holes in Don Maloney's truck. The Waco TV photographer was an eyewitness to the morning assault by federal agents on the Branch Davidian cult compound just east of Waco. More than 150 ATF agents had come here armed with search and arrest warrants. They were greeted with lots of gunfire.
We were pinned down. 45 minutes of gunfire, automatic gunfire. First 5-10 minutes was a job. Get the video, do your job, and then after that, you begin to wonder that, because bullets were flying over our heads, they were hitting the news unit, they were about 2 feet from our feet.
The gunfire took a heavy toll on the government agents. 4 dead, 14 wounded.
Our hearts go out to these brave agents who died today in the line of duty, and to their families. Today's events point up to the fact that federal law enforcement officers across America place their lives on the line every minute of every day.
Then came the standoff. All day long, reinforcements were brought in from as far away as Fort Hood. An armored personnel carrier rumbled down the farm road. Patrol cars came streaming by. Military helicopters came flying overhead. Inside the 77-acre, well-fortified compound is the leader, Vernon Howell, who claims to be the second coming of Christ. A Waco newspaper just this week called him the sinful Messiah. Howell, or David Koresh as he wants to be known, was apparently wounded in the gunfire. He may have as many as 150 followers with him inside the compound, many of them children. They all came here to await Armageddon.
The people inside are very aware of any outside movements and become very jittery when they see something that happens or when they see a furtive movement that they don't know about ahead of time.
There was some sporadic gunfire this afternoon, Bob and Minerva, and then at 7 o'clock tonight, 3 members of the cult tried to make a break for it, getting into another gun battle with law enforcement officers. 1 cult member was killed, we are told, by the ATF. Another was captured. A 3rd was wounded and retreated back into the compound. And except for today's deadly events and an internal gun battle that took place about 5 years ago, Debbie Johnson, most of the folks who live around this cult say they're quiet neighbors.
Yeah, that's true, Wayne. The cult, actually called or known as the Branch Davidians, is an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They broke off from the church and moved out here from Los Angeles back in 1935. But despite the longevity of the cult in and around the Waco area, very few Waco residents that we spoke with had ever even heard of this cult before today. The peace of John Zanter's Sunday morning was shattered, literally, when gunfire erupted a half-mile down the road from where he lived. How many gunshots did you hear?
It was quite a few, you know. I couldn't really say how many it was, but he knew it was something that wasn't normal.
Despite the tragedy, Zanter says he doesn't mind having the cult members as neighbors.
If they mind their own business and we mind our own, they got a right to be there too.
Many Waco residents had never heard of the Branch Davidians before today, despite the cult's existence here since the 1930s. Had you ever heard of this group before today?
No, I have not.
And how long have you lived in Waco?
All of my life.
Others were horrified by the news.
It's kind of unreal. I mean, you know, this being so close to Waco, and especially that a cult.
It's scary.
A Waco Christian radio station had been receiving calls throughout the day from across the state. All they could do was try to calm callers' fears.
We're just trying to reassure them that the world's not falling apart. I mean, with what's happened in New York and just a couple of days ago and now here, and then bombings across the world overnight, it would sound as though the message of this cult is maybe bringing some reality to people that perhaps we're at the end of the world.
Unfortunately, this was the end of their world for the 4 federal agents, and we should point out there was another victim. A 2-year-old cult member was also shot and killed in the gunfire. One other point, the local newspaper and an Australian detective hired by former cult members has been investigating this group back since 1990. We're told that information was turned over to local authorities at that time, but they were told that there was not enough information to pursue any investigation at the time. We'll continue monitoring the story as it develops, Bob and Minerva.
All right, and the Seventh-day Adventists, with whom their name has been associated, this sect has disavowed any connection with these folks. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. As I mentioned at the top of the live shot, they broke away from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It is an offshoot, but it is not in any way associated with that well-known organization.
Thank you, Debbie.